In the last assignment, we solved one-step equations, and today we're going to solve two-step equations. Looking at number 1, how many operations are there in that equation? There are 2. What are they? We have a divide, and we have an addition. There are 2 operations. Okay? According to order of operations, what's the first thing that happens to A? Does it get divided by 4 first, or does it get added to 2 first? If A was, say, 6, would I do 6 divide 4 or 6 plus 2? 6 divide 4. So I'm going to order these. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and label this as operation number 1, and this is operation number 2. And the mnemonic I prefer for order of operations is pedal, parentheses, exponents. The third one is division and multiplication. They're equal. And then addition and subtraction are equal. And the L stands for perform them from left to right. You run into some problems if you don't do it left to right, in the correct way, that is. So, how do we solve for A? Well, it's easy. And this is part of the reason why I like the mnemonic pedal. All you have to do to solve this is pedal backward, literally and figuratively. Okay? We are going to undo each of these operations in reverse order. We're going to pedal backwards. So, when you look at A, the first thing that happens to A is divide 4. The second thing that happens to A is plus 2. When we solve for A, we're going to get rid of the last operation first, and then get rid of the first operation. So you probably already knew that in your head. If I asked you to solve for A, you would have said subtract 2. Why would you subtract 2 first? And you wouldn't have been able to tell me. The reason you subtract 2 first is that's the last thing that happens to the letter A. Does that make sense? So, we subtract 2. Those turn into a 0. Subtract 2, and I get 4 equals A over 4. How do you get rid of the divide 4? Multiply by 4. So now I have 16 equals A. Does that help you understand why you do them in the particular order that you do? Because they're about to get more complicated. Tomorrow they'll be much more complicated. And you might look at it and say, which one goes first? Well, label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then solve them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So take a look at number 3. What's the first thing that happens to X? So this is step 1, the multiplication is step 1, and the subtract is step 2. When I solve, I undo step 2, and then I undo step 1. How do you undo subtract 7? Add 7. So that ends up to be 0. So 9x equals 0. Now what? So what's holding the 9 and the x together? That would be multiplication. We divide to undo it, and I get x equals 0. How do I know if I did that correctly? Plug it back in. So plug this 0 in here. Is 9 times 0 minus 7 equal to negative 7? Yes. And it turns out that 0 is the only number that works. If you were to try every number in the universe, the only number that works is 0. There is no other way to solve that. Does that make sense? Okay, look down at the bottom of the page. Number 12. This one seems a little bit more difficult. What's the first thing that happens to the x? So this is step 1, and the second thing? It's not minus 12, it's multiply by negative 12. This is step 2. So how do I undo step 2? divide by 12. So if I divide this by negative 12 and divide this by negative 12, I get negative 12 equals, that turns into a 1, equals x plus 5. Now what? Subtract 5. So negative 17 equals x. And it's a good idea to plug that back in. Negative 17 plus 5 is negative 12. Negative 12 times negative 12 is 144. Okay, number 6. Okay, number 6. What's the first thing that happens to x? We're adding the 5 to it, so that's step 1, and this is the divide is step 2. So how do I undo step 2? Multiply by 6. So I get negative 6 equals 5 plus x. How do I get rid of the 5? Subtract 5. Negative 11 equals x. And there is no reason why you should get this wrong on the test. You can always plug it back in and see if it works. So if we take that negative 11, 5 plus negative 11 is negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 6 is negative 1. We did it correctly. Okay? All right. Good luck.